Antarctica and the Arctic. And I think the tagline here kind of explains what Quark's all about, because there's 44 operators now going down to Antarctica, and we're do it a little bit differently. We do it a bit more immersively, so that's why the explorers wanted. So I'm just going to get stuck into it here. I've been in the industry for over 25 years, but the last 8 years I've been focusing primarily just on polar expeditions. So I've been around a while, seen quite a bit of it, and really proud of what Quark has to offer. I'm just going to show you a little 1-minute video, which kind of I think it shows a perfect example of why Quark and why we say explorers wanted. So I think from that you can see that we're very immersive in our, what's going on here? We're very immersive in our expeditions. I am stuck. Here we go. There we go. Sorry. So you got to ask your question. Why Quark and why choose us? Well, we've been taking people down on expeditions to the polar regions, and exclusively the polar regions, for over 30 years. So we're basically one of the founders of IATO and IACO, a Canadian company. And like I said, we've been around for quite some time. We also have one of the largest fleets specifically designed just for polar expeditions. So what's different between us and our competitors is that, for instance, when we finish up the season down in Antarctica, we'll deadhead our ships straight up to the Arctic. So we don't do any expeditions anywhere else on the Earth. So the ships and all the equipment, our expedition team, they're all dedicated to polar conditions. We have a fleet of 3 ships at the moment. We're looking at a 4th, but the one that kind of stands out on the left there is the Ultramarine. That was launched last year in 2022, and it has 2 helicopters on it, specifically designed for polar expeditions, similar to the World Explorer in the top right. All of our ships take less than 200 passengers, so the Ultramarine will take up to 199, usually travel on with 170 passengers. The World Explorer 172, another purpose-built ship, which was delivered in 2018, so very modern in itself. Back in those days, you could probably remember when you'd be thinking about bringing a new ship in, you're talking about 2 or 3 years to build it. So back in 2015, there wasn't entries in the marketplace like Ponant, Silverseas, and all these, and Scenic that came in later. So Quark thought, well, we better design some ships that are more comfortable for the clients that are coming. And with the World Explorer, we've got a heated pool on the top. And it wasn't until that was launched that we saw all these other high-end ships coming down. So then we went back to our grassroots, and the Ultramarine on the left, well, instead of a heated pool, we put 2 helicopters up there so we can get more immersive. Bottom right is the Ocean Adventurer, our smallest ship in the fleet, 128 passengers maximum, so that can really get into those areas that are hard to reach, and works really well with our fly into the polar and Antarctic peninsula options, where you have chartered planes sometimes that hold a maximum of 70 passengers. So that's a good trip for that. So the Ultramarine is worth taking a deeper dive and taking a look at. So I'm just going to play you a little 90-second video on this one. So basically, it's a walkthrough. This is a theaterette where we do all our presentations. So you'll get pre and post expedition. Has a bar in the back. Up on deck 7 is our spa and gym with the sauna. You can see all the curved corners for the expeditions. We have a wraparound deck that you can do follow all the way around the ship, which is quite unique. Over 80% of the ship has balconies, just that one deck 5 where you can wrap around and follow the wildlife. That's a standard room with a balcony. 60% of the ship has that standard. This is the high-end ultra suite up on deck 7. Goes up to deck 8. Deck 8 is where the helicopter pad is. There you see on deck 8, 2 twin-engine helicopters to take your passengers. So everybody that does an ultramarine crew expedition gets a helicopter flight included. I actually have 20 Zodiacs. They hold up to 15 passengers each, so there's plenty of Zodiacs. We've got 4 different water level entries. The marine at the back, 2 on the sides. So you're not walking down gangways to get down to the Zodiacs. You walk straight in at sea level. Got 2 restaurants. This is the Bellina restaurant at deck 5, where the lecture theater's at. Gotten a lot more elegant these days. And then got a panorama lounge up on deck 7 with a library and a bar. And you have 270-degree views out to the ocean. And then up on deck 7 as well is a bistro. So if you just want to catch a sandwich and not go down to the dining room, you can do so. That will, see if I can get out of these videos. It's a little tricky. There we go. No. There we go. Okay, so twin-engine helicopters. The World Explorer, basically the same blueprint as the Ultramarine, just has the helicopters. And the Ocean Adventure, the 128-passenger ship, a bit more traditional. So we'll take it beyond, probably the biggest advantage we have is our expedition team. We have a 1-in-6 ratios on land. So these are the expedition teams. So every 6 passengers go on land, there's a guide for them. And the reason for that is we do so many activities that I'll show you that you can customize your own experience on. So it's very important. Won a lot of awards. Just won Best Expedition Company at Virtuoso last month. And then up in the Arctic, up in the top right, we go up to Svalbard. So that's early in the season. She'll be up there around May, June, July. And then we start to move the fleet. We follow the sun. We move it westward into Greenland and Iceland in the July and August, and over to the far north parts of Canada, where you'll get the Northwest Passage. So Svalbard, Greenland, the Arctic, up into Canadian Arctic. So Svalbard, people go up there for the polar bears. The reason we're up there in May, June, and July is because of the polar bear, and the ice is prevalent coming out of the winter months. So there's plenty of ice. They love the ice. Plus they've been hibernating, so they're quite a bit easier to spot that time of year. And so that's what that's all about. And we'll go up there to see the wildlife, particularly polar bear, walrus, seals, bird life. And we'll run programs from 10 days along the west coast of Svalbard, and then we'll wrap it right around in 14 days and do a circumnavigation. And then we head into, like I said, into June, July, down, we'll start heading down to Greenland. And then Greenland, I think this one in particular with the ultramarine with the helicopters really lights it up. So Greenland's you go for not just for wildlife, but also for culture. There's lots of indigenous communities there that we visit, very remote. So the helicopters on the ultramarine really bring it to life. So those of you who've been to Iceland, you know you can do that golden circle and you drive 3-4 hours to get to these magnificent little sites. Well, Greenland's like Iceland on steroids. Problem is, it's such a big country like Australia. You need the aircraft, the helicopters to get to these amazing sites, and then you can immerse yourself in the hikes. That so ultramarine brings those helicopters and gets the people into the interior. So not only are we doing ice landings but you can also choose, and these are optional excursions you pay extra for. You can go inland and do mountain biking for the day. So you fly in a helicopter, mountain bike, get picked up by helicopters. You can go kayaking in the lakes and rivers and get picked up in the evening by the helicopters. Those that aren't into that more athletic type of activities, you can go in and do some camping. And we take an indigenous chef with you, and he catches the fish, or you catch the fish, the trout, right in lakes and rivers, and he'll pick the roots out, and he'll actually set up a wonderful experience with a meal experienced out there. And then so we head down from Svalbard. You can do Greenland and Iceland. So you could do 3 Antarctic islands if you wanted to, or concentrate on the southern tip of Greenland. Or you can get out there later in the months, especially in September and October, and you get a chance to see the Northern Lights. And then the Canadian Arctic. So the fleet's moving now, like I said, westward following the sun. So later in the season, you get into July, August, September, the ice is breaking up in the Canadian Arctic, and we can get up into the fjords and communities. Because we are Canadian and we're a low impact with less than 200 passengers, we can we work with the indigenous communities. We actually have indigenous guides on our trips. I mentioned the indigenous chefs as well. But you can get out there in that Northwest Passage and really see some of the amazing sights, the Arctic fox, whales, and really have a wonderful experience up there. So we run this, like I said, late in the summer months. What's different for Quark is we fly, as you'll see in this picture here, from Toronto, and we charter planes and get you into the far North Arctic. Flight a couple hours, so you're not wasting a couple days sailing on to get to the destination. We get you there, and you then immerse yourself in it. With Antarctica, we do it all. We cross from Ushuaia down into the peninsula with the Drake crossing. Some of you would have heard about the Drake Shake and the Drake Lake. You get a 50-50 chance of getting both experiences. People freak out about the Drake Shake, but that's when actually the albatross come out. They love the winds, and that's when you see a wonderful bird life show. Those that don't want to do that can fly it out of Punta Arenas in Chile. You can fly 2 hours, and we'll get you down to King George Island. It's actually a Chilean Air Force base, and you can join the voyage there and fly back out. And then there's also out to South Georgia, which I'll talk about in a minute. So the seasons, November through December, early season, that's when the chicks are just being laid, and the penguins are sitting over their eggs, the male. And then around December to February, the chicks will come out. They're starting to act up, and by March, April, all of Antarctica is on fire, and those little chicks are acting like teenagers and stealing each other's rocks and being really naughty. So the seasons are, you can't go wrong. The photographer loved the early seasons because of all the snow and white backgrounds. Middle of the season when the chicks are coming out, it's a wonderful time. A lot of grotto in the ground, but wonderful time to be out there. And then later in the February, April periods when the wildlife is just going off, the whales, everybody's all happening at that time of the year. Falkland Islands in South Georgia. So I brought this slide up again to show you that you got to go basically 2 days out from Ushuaia, the tip of Argentina, to get out there. And then 2 days back to get to the peninsula, and then 2 days back across the Drake. So 6 days of open water sailing to get out there. So people ask, why would you do that? You'll see thousands of penguins in the Antarctica Peninsula. You'll see tens of thousands of penguins in South Georgia. So it's worth it going out there. Naturalists once told me it's basically one of the three epic natural experiences on Earth, with the migration in Masai Mara, the Galapagos, and he said South Georgia. And I've been out there myself just that last November, and it did not fail to impress you. It's just deafening. The whole mountain's moving with the wildlife. And the Falklands Islands is very similar as well. So, and there's a lot of history in South Georgia, Shackleton's Crossing and so forth. Patagonia, the last one to show you here. A lot of people say, why would you go to Patagonia? Well, basically, you're seeing the mountains right onto the sea. Lots of opportunities to see wildlife there, and lots of hiking opportunities and helicopters to utilize there. And at Snow Hill, once every couple of years, we'll go back to Snow Hill. We're doing that in October and November of this year. There's still some availability on this voyage. People go to Snow Hill to see the emperor penguin. The emperor penguins can stand up to 6 feet tall, and it's very rare. And we discovered Snow Island with the BBC in 2004, and we go back every few years, because normally you only see the emperor penguin on the continent, all huddled together through those really cold winters. What's it like on a ship? A typical day: you wake up, you do an expedition early in the morning after breakfast, back for lunch, on board for buffet lunch, then another expedition with Quark. We try to hit 2 expeditions every day. Recap in our entertainment is the recap with our lecturers and historians, and then dinner, and then there's relax in the lounge, because it's usually an early day the next day. So there's no entertainment like with musicians or anything like that. It's all about the team and the learning experiences that you have out there, and viewing of nature. We'll wake you up in the middle of the night to see a pod of whales or whatever, if you join if you want. Most people do. Excellent food on board, very comfortable these days. Lounges and bars are all on all the ships. Even the Ocean Adventure has a hot tub. And so you then can customize your experience with included all the Zodiac landings, the helicopter scenic flights on the Ultramarine, all included. And then you can take it to another level to customize it. You can do kayaking or just paddling if you're not a full-on kayaker. Sleep out in the ice in the early seasons. Also camping, like I mentioned, up in the Arctic. And so those helicopters really make it a bit different, and a point of difference of what's out there. There's 7 people to every helicopter flight, and we rotate them like this is an extension of the kayaks. Oh, sorry, the Zodiac landings. So we don't use helicopters when we're doing landings. We use the helicopters where they are suited for the destination. So people will go up and do 20-minute flights in a place like it's an Iceberg Alley into Antarctica. And lots of options to choose from, the camping and so forth. Like I said, to customize some themed departures, like there's photography departures, table to tundra, when you go out and have an indigenous chef on board the whole time up in the Arctic, and they'll introduce you to the cuisine. For you guys, there's our partner portal with Parker, who's going to help you. We have AI to answer a lot of the questions. It's a trade portal. Everything that you've seen that I've shown you, videos and everything, are all on this. All of our offers, everything's up to date. We also have our team here we have 24/6 reservations. So we have people placed here in Australia, North America, UK, Costa Rica. So there's someone always online to help you answer those questions, because we know this is a bit unique. So that's it for me. Any questions you guys might have, I'm happy to answer them. I'll send you a backup. Everybody, I'll send you a follow-up email. And I think that is it. Let me see. I'd stop sharing. Can anyone hear me?
That was fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool.
How many tours have you been on?
I've been on 8. Okay. I've been on 3 with Quark, and 5 when I was, managing director of Aurora Expeditions.
Okay, terrific. That was wonderful.
Incredible. Thank you so much. We might go to the next presenter, Will from Coral Expeditions, and then we'll take any questions at the end. And by the way, if you have any questions, feel free also to write them in the chat in the meantime.
All good. So over to me. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, perfect.
Fantastic. Look, so my name's Will. I work for a company called Coral Expeditions. It's a very different prospect to Quark, who, yeah, look, I can personally vouch for those guys. You know, fantastic in the polar regions. So Coral tend to work in the more kind of subtropical and tropical regions, with a few exceptions, like cold and windy Tassie and New Zealand sometimes. I'm going to be focusing on our kind of WA trips. So we were founded 40 years or so ago now, and for 30 of the last years, we've been running our Kimberley expeditions. So we pioneered the Kimberley, like I say, 30 years or so ago. But just to give you an overview of what we do and where we go. So we've got expedition cruises out to the Indian Ocean. We're just coming to the tail end of our inaugural trip through Japan and the Philippines. And we've been going to places like PNG, Sulawesi, Raja Ampat, Borneo for many, many years now. We do full circumnavigations of Australia, and like I say, move out of those kind of warmer tropical waters to visit New Zealand, which we've been going for the last 10 years or so. Again, just a really short video to give you an overview of the kind of Kimberley product that we offer. Cool. So that gives you a little bit of an overview of the Kimberley. It's at the core of our business. We've been doing it for 30 years now. No one has the levels of accrued kind of experience and knowledge that we have in the Kimberley, you know, particularly crucial with, you know, tidal ranges in excess of 12 meters. You need to go with people that get you into the right place at the right time. We do slightly different to a lot of other cruise lines out there, particularly kind of those big ship cruise lines. We are Australian owned, we're Australian flagged, we are Australian crewed, admittedly with a handful of Kiwis sprinkled on board, and we provide that really informal, laid back onboard experience. The whole ethos being that we focus on the destinations rather than the ships itself. Don't get me wrong, the onboard experience is still very, very premium. But if you're looking for, you know, multiple bars, restaurants, casinos, white jacketed waiters, then that's just not the kind of Coral product, and you should probably look elsewhere. But if you want that, like I say, really in-depth you know, true expedition experience with that kind of Australian style and flavor, then Coral Expeditions are for you. So really laid back. There's no formal assigned seating. There's no dressing for dinner, that type of thing. And fully purpose-built expedition ships, which I'll come on to. So Coral Discoverer, our smallest, we call yacht-like vessel, maximum 72 passengers across 36 staterooms. Across all of our 3 ships in the fleet, all our cabins are outward facing, all are en suite, and many come with private balconies. Coral Discoverer stays in domestic waters, and we utilize Coral Adventurer and Coral Geographer. These two are our 2 most newest ships, basically, both launched in the last 4 years. They've got a maximum capacity of 120. Again, 60 staterooms, all outward facing, all en suite, many, as you can see, with private balconies. And these 2 new ships, whilst they're fully present in the Kimberley and WA season, have given us that flexibility to, really push the boundaries in terms of some of the international destinations that we go to. Look, similar to what Rob said with Quark, we've got, full detailed information online. Feel free to jump on and peruse to your heart's content. If you take away anything from this presentation at all, it's probably our Explorer tenders. These are designed and built by Coral Expeditions. They are unique to us. No other cruise line, domestic or international, can offer such a tender. And they are, provide the perfect conduit between our mothership vessels and the myriad of real remote wilderness areas that we travel to. They are really easy to board, so there's no steps or ladders to contend with. Down on the bottom right image there, you can see that, top right image, you can see you can just walk off one of the main decks straight onto the Explorer, and then bottom right, they just get hydraulically lowered off the back of the ship, and then away you go. They're absolutely perfect for, harbour and beach landings, both wet and dry landings. You can see on the top left there, they've got a drop-down ramp. And a really great way of, particularly in tropical waters, of exploring. So they've got a canopy, which is, crucial in those tropical regions, in the kind of, the burning tropical sun. They've got onboard audio equipment, so our expedition team can, impart their knowledge. Comfortable padded seating, which if any of you have ever jumped on a Zodiac before, after the first hour or so, with no back support or no kind of protection from the elements, can get a little bit draining for some of the multiple hour excursions we do, and we tend to do 2 big shore excursions each day. They've got a toilet on board as well for remote convenience, and that might not sound like a big deal, but it saves us having to constantly return to the mothership for toilet breaks, or having to find a suitable bush or jump into the ocean for a quick toilet break. And absolutely not ideal in places like the Kimberley, where we've got a lot of saltwater crocs around. So yeah, they are absolutely key to providing a true expedition product, not only in the Kimberley but every domestic and international destination that we cruise. But like I say, really important to note that on all of our trips, we complement those Explorer tenders with the more traditional Zodiac inflatables. So it means that our guests can, pick and choose how adventurous, or not they want to be on a day-by-day basis. So I've mentioned we don't have any, onboard entertainment as such outside of our full schedule of guest presentations from our expedition team and our guest lecturer team, and obviously tailored to the specific destinations in which we're cruising. And it's designed, and the whole ethos of the company is to kind of leave our guests or provide an immersive experience on the flora, fauna, history, culture, geography, geology of the places that we cruise in. And again, our expedition team, similar to Quark, accompany all of our ashore based excursions. We don't outsource to any third parties, which means we can guarantee both the onboard and ashore expedition experience. So moving on to some of the featured itineraries. The Kimberley, as I mentioned, is at the core of our business. We've been cruising there for 30 years. We pioneered expedition cruising in the Kimberley, and I might be biased, but look, no one does it better than Coral Expeditions. So the Kimberley cruise is a 10-night expedition between Darwin and Broome, and vice versa. We're there for the entire full season, so no one has the depth and breadth of departures that Coral Expedition offer from April to September. We've got around 50 departures each season. All 3 of our ships are present during the full Kimberley season as well. And then we have two slightly different. So we've got the best of the Kimberley and the Tiwi Islands. Again, still 10 nights between Darwin and Broome in August and September each year. We just use Coral Discoverer, so our smaller kind of yacht-like vessel, maximum capacity 72 passengers for this trip. And you still get all the highlights of the Kimberley, but we spend a little bit of time in the pretty remote Tiwi Islands, which is a big kind of indigenous art centre. So we market this around those kind of the potential to go and buy fantastic indigenous art from the producers on the Tiwis. And then if you've got a couple of extra nights, we have what we call our Kimberley icon. So it's still the base of what we do in the Kimberley, but we tack on an extra couple of nights. So we can steam out into international waters to go and visit Scotty Reef and Ashmore Reef. Amazing scuba and snorkel opportunities here. But those extra 2 days just allow us that day really to get out there and the day to get back. But you still get the core Kimberley experience. So I've just got another really brief video to show you, and then I'll kick on some of the highlights.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jamie, your expedition leader, giving you the final call. You'll need hat, sunscreen, water, as it will be warm. Optional footwear, folks. Thank you. I'm James Anderson, mostly called Jamie, and I've been in this role for around 17 years with the company. Back in 2002, I was teaching, and I was asked by a friend of mine if I was interested in doing a job. I was fed up with teaching, and so I said, I'll give it a go. He put me on the Kimberley run for the first time. People travelling the Kimberley will see a massive diversification of not only animals and plants, but also the rock systems. Geology is huge in the Kimberley due to its age. It is the most remote wilderness area left in Australia, really, and luckily it's still like that. It's not overrun yet. More and more vessels are coming in, but at the same time, when it comes down to it, there's still plenty of places you can go without seeing anybody. The remoteness makes it one of the most magnificent trips around. You can't get bored anywhere that we go. Everything's new. The weather changes, the light changes. You've also got the marine side of things. These are with the whales and dolphin. Also going up into river systems that nobody else goes into. It is the most unique reef in the world. It comes out of water, exposes itself twice a day, and it depends on the tidal level as to how much of the reef is exposed. So what we've seen on our cruise this particular trip has been just extraordinary. The indigenous populations, there are three different groups that we go through. We go through the Wunnabal Gambera people, we go through the Warra country, and we go through the Bardi country. They departed basically in 1942, and so we're lucky to go through those particular different areas, and it's nice if we can see them along the way.
Right, so look, that just gave you a bit of a kind of overview of what to expect in the Kimberley. I won't spend too much time in kind of commentary on some of the individual highlights, but rest assured, it's spectacular scenery. It's spectacular kind of indigenous history and art that you see in multiple locations. King George Falls, the highest waterfall in the Kimberley, a massive twin fall, is either your first or last spot, depending if you depart Darwin or Broome, but one of the true highlights. Vansittart Bay, one of the big indigenous art areas that we visit, and obviously a little bit of World War II history with a couple of crashed planes there as well. You've got the optional heli flight. So we don't have helicopters on our ships at all. We find, unlike some kind of suppliers in the Kimberley, it can kind of ruin the kind of tranquility and the true sense of wilderness. The difference, I suppose, is that Mitchell Falls, it's the only activity which we don't operate ourselves. It's the only activity that is an additional cost. Everything else from food and onboard experience and excursions is obviously fully all inclusive. I got the chance to do this last season. It's well worth the money. They take you up for about a 45-minute flight to fly over the plateau, land you at Mitchell Falls, which you can see, which is just one of the multiple different falls as they cascade down. It's one of the rare places that you can swim in the Kimberley, because they assure us it's saltwater croc free. But again, it's the only, like I say, optional activity in the Kimberley, but highly recommended. Carossus Creek, you saw briefly in the video just then, an amazing harbour. It's a massive area of mangroves, and the bird and marine life is absolutely spectacular in this particular location. Again, King's Cascade, you saw in the video there, one of the many waterfalls that we can see in the Kimberley. Just to touch on the waterfalls, so people always ask me, and it's one of those kind of frequently asked questions, you know, are we going to get to see water coming over the falls? And obviously it's weather dependent. So the season that we've just completed in the Kimberley, there was pretty much water flowing throughout the 5 or 6 month season, basically, because we had so much water at the beginning of the season. But traditionally, you know, April, May, June, we call kind of waterfall season. That's just at the beginning of the season. The monsoon tropical rains have only recently stopped, so we've still got a mass of water flowing off the kind of Kimberley Plateau. As we progress later into the season, and we've literally just finished in kind of early September, the waterfalls have a tendency to either dry up or certainly, you know, slow down to a trickle or a lower fall, basically. If you want waterfalls from April, May, June, or the early you can go in the season, absolutely book in there. The caveat to that is later in the season we call, you know, whale season. It's when the whales show up from, I think, down south in Antarctic waters. So if you're looking for that kind of marine life, and I must say that the absolutely, you know, perfect weather, dry, not too hot, you know, towards the end of the season is the time to go. Careening Bay is a famous kind of historical site. So some of the early explorers heading around charting, you know, Australian waters just in really small little, you know, sailboats, basically carved their the name HMS Mermaid into this baobab tree, which is still there, which is we go for a little short hike to this location. And then Montgomery Reef, which Ian in the previous visit, we visit on all of our trips, and is one of the true highlights. So Monty Reef, that we shorten it to, at high tide, completely underwater, basically. And it's this flat topped reef that, as the tide falls, and the tidal ranges are huge, the water just cascades off that you can see. And this, you know, tens of square kilometers of reef just magically kind of appear from the water, basically. We go in there with our explorers, you can see on the screen, and our Zodiacs, and just watch the incredibly, you know, diverse marine life. And then just watching this water cascade off is absolutely special. And again, this comes down to local knowledge, having been there and done that for so many years now. You know, you turn up at Monty Reef at the wrong time, at the wrong place, you're just not going to get the right spectacle. So, you know, when you cruise with Coral Expeditions, and that levels of experience and local knowledge, we get you into the right place at the right time. And then Horizontal Falls, probably the one highlight of the Kimberley that everybody's heard of, whether or not they've been there or not. We're one of the few cruise operators that still actually take our Zodiacs through Horizontal Falls. A lot of our, you know, competitors in the region, particularly some of the newer and less experienced operators in the region, will take you to Horizontal Falls. You'll have a little look at it, but you don't get the kind of exhilarating rush of heading through. As I mentioned, you know, massive tidal range in excess of 12 meters. All of that water trying to, you know, squeeze through an incredibly narrow gap, as you can see. And it just creates, as the name says, this, you know, dramatic horizontal waterfall. We get to go through multiple times, pretty much as many times as you want to do, and is an absolutely true highlight of the trip. Nares Point. So I put this slide into all my presentations. Ian in the previous video mentioned it's, a real highlight of the Kimberley is the geology. The rock formations are millions, if not billions of years old. This just shows you a particular, plate movements, and we've got onboard experts who are much better than I will be about, highlighting the different kind of geology and the reasons and of how these kind of formations were formed. But again, all of our expeditions, not just the Kimberley, it's focused on the destination, not the ship. It's the flora, fauna, marine life, bird life. It's the indigenous cultures. It's the art and history of the areas that we go to. And then the Lassipede Islands, one of the first or last, depending on which way you intend to go. Really flat top, so not particularly interesting in terms of a kind of geological sense, but it's one of the most important bird sanctuaries in the Kimberley, if not the whole of Australia. And it is just wall to wall bird life, and it's a protected nesting area, and we get the chance to cruise around there. If you're a keen birder, this is a must do visit when you're in the Kimberley. So moving swiftly on, as I don't want to take up too much of your time, we do outside of the Kimberley, it's always going to be the core 50 or so departures. We've got that classic Kimberley 10-night itinerary, but those two kind of standalone additions, one with the Tiwis and one heading out deeper into international waters to explore different reefs, Ashmore and Rowley Shoals, which are well worth it if you've got a couple of extra days. But the Abrolhos Islands and the Coral Coast are, if you've been there and done that with the Kimberley and want something a little bit different, it's a really, really popular itinerary that we offer. It's 12 nights between Fremantle and Broome. Departs February, March, and I think September each year. We use both of our two newest ships to do this. I'll move on to some of the highlights, but the Abrolhos Islands, until I came to Australia many years or so ago, I hadn't really heard of them, but it's got a particularly dark history with one of the Dutch ships was shipwrecked on the Abrolhos Islands. I'll spare you the detail of that. Have a little look online at the wreck of the Batavia and what happened after that. But the Abrolhos are a starkly beautiful kind of archipelago of islands. It's amazing snorkeling, it's amazing scuba diving, amazing marine and bird life there, and we get to visit Shark Bay and Dirk Hartog Island. Just spectacularly beautiful kind of coastal regions. I probably don't need to tell you too much about Ningaloo Reef. For many people, it beats the Great Barrier Reef hands down in that regard. And then we've got various visits to Dampier Archipelago, Montebello Islands, and the Marion Islands, which I'll come on to shortly. So look, the Easter group of islands, and spectacular marine life, loads of snorkeling and diving opportunities, which is a very, very different prospect, obviously, to the Kimberley, where we strongly recommend you stay out of the water as much as possible. Point Perennes in the Francois Peron National Park, I had the joy of visiting a couple of years ago, pre-COVID, a spectacularly beautiful wilderness remote national park. And again, we've got a couple of shore excursions daily, and they vary anything from significant hikes to much more gentler beach combs and just cruising around the bays and creeks of the area in our Explorer tenders. The point being that we offer a level of excursion that kind of suits all fitness requirements, basically. So if you want to kind of push yourself on a more significant hike, happy days. But if you just want to stay aboard the Explorers or just laze on the beach and have a little bit of a beach comb, we offer multiple different choices to suit all kind of fitness requirements and kind of areas of specific interest. So the Abrolhos Islands, absolutely spectacular. It's well known for the Australian pearl industry, so there's a lot of kind of pearl farming going on there. These islands are incredibly remote, very untouched in the sense that bottom left there's a couple that are occupied year round by fishermen and pearl farmers, but the vast majority of them are completely uninhabited. The reefs there are fantastic. So again, bottom right, loads of chances to get into the water, have a snorkel, have a dive, and again, we use our Zodiacs and Explorers to cover a lot of ground in a relatively short period of time. Shark Bay, again, Shark Bay backs onto Dirk Hartog Island, which then backs onto Francois Peron National Park. Absolutely spectacular, relatively, barren, but really remote wilderness areas. And again, that is Coral Expeditions in a nutshell. We don't go to destinations that are easily accessible or, that have masses of tourists. We don't go anywhere near Bali or those types of places. We focus domestically and international on places that are our sweet spot, which is remote wilderness areas, impossible if not hard to get to, and we do it with small groups to avoid, overwhelming the cultures and flora and fauna and fragile ecosystems of the places that we go to. Montebello Islands is a lovely little archipelago of islands that again we get to visit, and again hiking, beachcombing, water activities is the name of the game here. I'm just going to finish with a really short video that hopefully just sums up Coral Expeditions. I'm biased, obviously, but we have absolutely amazing, genuine, true small ship expedition product. I will reiterate that if you're looking for that big ship experience with multiple bars, restaurants, casinos, white jacketed waiters, that's just not what we offer with Coral Expeditions. But if you want a small ship, small group, no queuing, no waiting, true expedition itinerary to some of the world's or most remote wilderness areas, then Coral should absolutely be on your radar. But thank you very much, guys. I'm pretty much done. I know that Eula and Kathy are going to be recording this webinar and sending out to all that have registered. And look, please reach out to the team at Cruise Express. We've been working with them for years. Please reach out to our genuinely excellent reservations and sales teams as well up in our Cairns-based head office. They know the product, inside out, and happy to assist if you have any questions. And more than happily to get you on board, and you'll have a fantastic expedition experience. But thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, Rob. I think unless anyone has any questions, we'll just throw it out there for a moment or two. If anyone. You can, again, type it in the chat or just unmute yourself. I think it was a very thorough presentation, so I can't imagine there would be too many questions. Thank you. Both full of information, but very unique products, obviously with the different regions of the world and similar styles of cruising in the sense of really getting down to the grassroots and making sure people have a very authentic experience. So
yeah, and that's what I'll say. And it's the same, I think, with Quark, and I'm sure Rob would agree with me. True expedition operators like Quark and like Coral Expeditions, it's there's a lot of people out there that want that big ship experience. Absolutely fine, they can go and do that. But these small ship expeditions to really remote destinations is by far and the best way to see these kind of remote wilderness areas. Yes, if you want bars, casinos, nightclubs, big music shows at night, that's what the big ships provide probably perfectly well. But if you're the type of client that wants that small group kind of intimate experience that focuses on the history, cultures, wildlife, art of these, both in the polar regions with Quark and in those kind of more tropical and subtropical regions with Coral Expeditions, then a small ship kind of true expedition operator is the way to go.
Yeah, very educational really at the end of the day, and it's very enriching, I guess, to the regions that you're going to. You're not going on it just to relax and go to the bar and sit by the pool. It's actually really people that want to stimulate their minds and learn more about the world and what's out there.
Okay, you seem to be you're exhausted at the end of these expeditions, but it's just really stimulating, and people come back as ambassadors for these areas. They're just pristine and beautiful, and something we all want to protect, and such a privilege to experience them.
Excellent. That's terrific. Well, thank you again. It's always a pleasure working with both of you and your wonderful company. So on behalf of Cruise Express and all of our guests on board today, we'll sign out here, I think.
Yeah, thanks so much. And if anyone
Thank you
has
very much, guys.
questions, please feel free to get in touch via the email. We'll also send out a link to the recording and follow up with anyone that expressed interest.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay,
Thank you,
take care,
guys, and
everybody.
have a great day. Cheers.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
thank
just
you.
fired you off an email so that you can send it out to anybody that has all the links.
Yeah.
We saw it. Thank you.
Great.
Okay,
Thanks, guys.
fabulous.
Cheers.
Okay,
Have a good day.
bye. Cheers.